Hello everyone, welcome to another video, and I hope you're feeling as much love as you can possibly handle. I'm your friendly neighborhood MobiWan, and please remember to like and subscribe because that will help my video with the algorithm. With all that being said, cue the intro. Venom: The Last Dance is the third installment in the Sony produced franchise, starring Tom Hardy in the lead role of Eddie Brock and the titular symbiote. I'd only seen the one trailer earlier this year, and for all intents and purposes, I went into this viewing without any expectations. All I can say is I really wish I could get that time back. I had to watch this movie twice for the purposes of this review, and even on the second viewing, my criticisms were no less apparent. So the movie opens with an exposition by the villain Null, who explains that he was imprisoned by his children, the symbiotes, and in order for him to be freed, he requires a MacGuffin called the Codex. He then directs his other children, the Xenophages, to search the universe, or the known universe, for said Codex. We are then shown as Eddie is returned to his universe and makes a decision that they need to leave where they currently are, which is Mexico, and make their way to New York, because it will allow them both to start over and avoid all the trouble that was caused in San Francisco in the previous movie. Now, I mean, you can try to do that, but unfortunately you're not going to be very successful at it. And the movie makes a point of this periodically by showing us public surveillance cameras as they pick up and identify Eddie Brock as he makes his way from Mexico to New York. There is early on a viewpoint that shows someone in the shadows watching a bank of screens as it identifies Eddie Brock. Who this person is, it never actually tells us. Who this agency is, well, it implies that it's a government-run agency operating under the name, creatively so, Area 55. Now, their base of operations is actually under the current Area 51, and their entire purpose is to house, secure, and study the symbiotes. Now, Area 55 is headed by Major Strickland, played by Chiwetel Ejiofor, and Dr. Payne, who's played by Juno Temple. It is at Area 55 that Mulligan, the cop from the second movie, is brought in, and to save his life, they have him bond with another symbiote. Now, keep this in mind because it is explained twice in the movie that in order for the Codex to be created, it would require that a symbiote saves its host from death. So this is something which Venom did for Eddie in the second movie. So it stands to reason that since Mulligan was saved from death by bonding with the symbiote, that he himself would have a Codex in him. But not according to the movie, because only Venom and Eddie have this. Xenophages can track the Codex, but only as long as the symbiote is in full form, and this occurs for the first time, or rather the second time, as he's hitching a ride on a plane and is then attacked by a Xenophage. Now, Venom and Eddie successfully escape, and it is shown that the Xenophages cannot be easily killed. It is around this time that we are also introduced to the family of the movie that's acting as the supporting characters for this movie, and they're headed by Martin, who's played by Rhys Evans, who are on their way to Area 51 to hopefully find some aliens. Since, according to the movie, Area 51 is being decommissioned, and they'd like to just have one last hurrah and hopefully spot some aliens. Now, Martin and his family play a role in helping Eddie make his way to Las Vegas while he's on his road trip to New York. Because, again, I call it road trip because this is, in effect, also a road trip movie. We are then treated to a sing-along where Eddie himself is voicing what we, as the audience, are thinking while watching the scene.
Why is this happening?
So while in Las Vegas, Eddie ends up assaulting two people so that he can get into a casino, which is where he happens across Mrs. Chen.
You know, I stole this suit off a guy who pissed on me.
Mrs. Chen played a bit character from the previous two movies. She's there to help him clean up, and then we are treated to the unnecessary dance scene between her and Venom. I have no idea what it is with Marvel making their characters dance. They've done this quite regularly now. They've done it in She-Hulk, they've done it in Deadpool, although Deadpool, I'd say they did it a lot better. And now, again, we've done it in Venom. Now, remember what Venom said in this movie.
She can only see the Codex when a symbiote is in its full, true form.
He throws all of that out the window just so that he could have the opportunity to dance with Mrs. Chen. And then Venom ends up acting surprised when a xenophage shows up. So by now, I'm sure you maybe have picked up that this movie suffers from inconsistent tone. There are scenes where there's a lot of menace and threat, such as when Mulligan's symbiote is again explaining what will happen if Null gets his hands on the Codex, which is then punctuated immediately by some funny or forced humorous scenes.
The darkness has turned.
The purpose behind humor in a thriller or horror is to offset tension which has been built through the movie. It acts as a form of relief for us from the audience from being constantly kept on the edge of our seat. In this movie, there is no tension and the humor falls completely flat. There is also no consistency with regards to the rules set by the previous movies and indeed this very movie. You see, in the first two movies, it is quite plainly set out that the symbiotes are not good in nature, they're villains. But in this movie, the angle has changed to outwardly state that the symbiotes are merely persecuted entities being hunted by the xenophages and Null, and that Earth is their final refuge, so to speak. Now, I know some of you might be saying, Mo, you're being nitpicky, you need to just switch off your brain and enjoy this movie. One can, and this is my counterpoint, one can enjoy a seemingly dumb movie and still have a movie which is competently written and makes sense in terms of its own world building, which unfortunately Venom: The Last Dance does not. So don't believe me about what I'm saying? Watch Pacific Rim. It's one of my favorite movies, but I mean, if I have to be honest about it, it's a dumb premise. So another issue with Venom: The Last Dance, aside from it taking its title literally, is that it's trying to be too many things at once. And yet there are moments of hope, such as when Venom and Eddie are trying to escape the government agents and Venom is seen hopping from animal to get to Eddie after they get separated. That sort of personifies what a symbiote can do. As I said, it's a ray of light in an otherwise dismal mood. Now, this host hopping done by Venom makes you ask the question, why can't Venom, seeing as a xenophage is so difficult to kill, why can't Venom just bond with the xenophage and then drain it? Because as was established in the previous movies, if a symbiote is not compatible with the host will ultimately die. And before you tell me that I'm overthinking this, the movie pretty much does this for the climax of the movie. You see, Venom, and yes, this is a spoiler, Venom bonds with multiple xenophages at once and then kills them by dragging them to an acid dump, and in the process he sacrifices himself. Now, if you're happy to waste time or to have something play in the background, then watch Venom: The Last Dance. I cannot actually honestly recommend this movie at all, and I regret that I had to watch it twice. For all intents and purposes, it is just the final movie in a series of movies that just made no sense. One could argue that the first movie was probably the best out of the three, but then again, you could say it's just the best of the worst. Venom: The Last Dance, not a movie I'd waste time on, unless you want to review it. But even then, it's difficult.
Smack that.
You're not going to like this.
No, I can absolutely guarantee you I'm not gonna.
Oh, you're still here? Well, this is the end credits scene, but there are no credits to share, unfortunately. If you support my channel via Patreon or buy me a coffee, I will add your name to the screen over here. And remember, please subscribe so that I can give you plenty of kisses for being a fellow movie lover.